The streets of Cleveland, Ohio, hold countless stories. Some are ordinary: commutes to work, children walking home from school, nurses hurrying to shift change. But some stories hide darker truths, shadows that linger for years, unanswered and unresolved. In March of 2013, one such story began to unfold. A woman, dedicated, loving, and respected in her community, was brutally attacked in broad daylight, just steps from the safety of her workplace. Her name was Aliza Sherman, and for more than a decade, her murder remained an agonizing mystery. But now, after years of frustration and grief, the case has finally shifted. Authorities have arrested a suspect, and the story of how investigators got here reveals just how relentless justice can be, even when it takes more than 10 years. To understand this case, we need to know who Aliza Sherman was beyond the headlines. Aliza was a 53-year-old nurse. She wasn't just someone who wore scrubs and clocked in hours at a hospital. She was a caregiver in every sense. Friends describe her as compassionate, devoted to her patients, and always willing to extend her shift to help those in need. At home, she was the heart of her family. A mother, a sister, a friend. Someone whose presence brought comfort and stability. She lived in Cleveland, a city where the Lake Erie winds cut sharp in the spring, where communities are close-knit, and where neighbors notice when something feels wrong. So when Aliza's life was taken in an act of sudden, brutal violence, the ripple it left behind wasn't small. It was seismic. It was March 24, 2013, a Sunday. For Aliza, it was supposed to be a routine day. She had an appointment with her divorce attorney inside the Galleria at Erie View, a downtown office building. Divorce is never easy, but this was a step forward in her personal life, a move toward resolution and independence. But Aliza never made it safely out of that building. At around 5:30 p.m., she was walking near the Galleria, just blocks away from her attorney's office. Witnesses would later describe a sudden, shocking scene. A man approached Aliza and attacked her with a knife. In broad daylight, on a busy Cleveland street. She was stabbed multiple times. Desperately wounded, Aliza tried to flee, stumbling toward the lobby of the Galleria, searching for help. Witnesses rushed to her side. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the injuries were too severe. Aliza Sherman died that day, on a Sunday evening when she should have gone home to her family. The murder stunned Cleveland. How could someone attack a woman so viciously in such a public place? Investigators poured into the area, interviewing witnesses, collecting surveillance footage, and searching for clues. They discovered that Aliza had recently been in the midst of a bitter divorce battle. Detectives began to look closely at her personal relationships, trying to piece together whether her murder was connected to those disputes. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, answers remained elusive. Yes, there was surveillance footage. Yes, there were witnesses. But the grainy video and chaotic nature of the attack left room for doubt. Leads went cold. Suspicions swirled, but prosecutors didn't have enough to move forward. And slowly, painfully, Aliza's murder became a cold case. For Aliza's family, the weight was unbearable. Her children and relatives spent years demanding answers, asking questions, and pressing law enforcement to keep the case alive. Imagine living with that kind of loss. Not just the grief of losing someone you love, but the haunting uncertainty of knowing their killer was still out there. Each anniversary of her death came with renewed pain. Each passing year without justice added another layer of frustration. But her family never gave up hope. They kept her memory alive, spoke her name, and urged investigators not to close the file. Cold cases are like puzzles missing crucial pieces. Sometimes those pieces appear through new technology. Sometimes it's a witness who finally speaks. And sometimes it's persistence, the refusal to let the case fade, that makes all the difference. In Aliza Sherman's case, all three played a role. Over the years, forensic technology advanced. Investigators revisited evidence with new tools, examining details that might have been overlooked in 2013. DNA analysis, digital enhancements of surveillance footage, and fresh interviews gave the case new momentum. The Cleveland Division of Police and the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office began quietly reopening the investigation. Slowly, the pieces began to fit. And then in 2024, a breakthrough. A suspect was finally identified and arrested. The man arrested in connection with Aliza's murder was someone tied to her life, a detail that underscores how often violent crimes are committed not by strangers, but by people within or near the victim's circle. Authorities have not yet released every detail of the evidence, but what we do know is that the new investigation uncovered key forensic and testimonial elements strong enough to support charges. For prosecutors, this was the moment Aliza's family had been waiting for. A chance to finally face the person accused of ending her life. It's a question worth asking. Why did it take more than a decade to get here? The answer lies in the complexity of homicide investigations. In 2013, the evidence may not have met the legal threshold for an indictment. Prosecutors need more than suspicion. They need solid, undeniable proof that can stand up in court. But time, in some cases, can be an ally. Forensic science improves. Witnesses may become more willing to talk. And sometimes, suspects make mistakes that resurface old suspicions. Aliza's case is a painful reminder that justice delayed is not necessarily justice denied. It can take years, even decades, for investigators to piece together the truth. But behind the technical details lies something far more important: the human cost. Aliza Sherman was not just a victim in a police file. She was a woman with dreams, responsibilities, and a family who loved her deeply. Her children lost a mother. Her patients lost a caregiver. Her community lost a source of kindness and strength. For her family, the arrest is both a relief and a reopening of wounds. Relief that someone has finally been held accountable. Pain because it forces them to relive the horror of her death. These are the dual realities of cold case arrests. They bring hope, but also force families to confront a past they never wanted to revisit. Cases like Aliza Sherman's raise bigger questions too. How many cold cases remain unsolved in America? How many families are still waiting for that late-night phone call, telling them an arrest has finally been made? And what does it say about our justice system that so many crimes take years, or decades, to resolve? The answers aren't simple. But each case that is solved, even after many years, reminds us that persistence matters. That detectives, prosecutors, and families working together can push the truth to the surface. As of today, the suspect in Aliza's case faces charges, and the legal process is unfolding. Court dates, hearings, and eventually, a trial will determine whether justice is fully served. It's a process filled with uncertainty. Defense attorneys will challenge the evidence. Prosecutors will argue their case. Jurors will decide. But one thing is clear: the silence surrounding Aliza's murder has been broken. When we think about crime stories, it's easy to focus on the sensational details, the stabbing, the chase for suspects, the courtroom drama. But at the heart of every case is a human being whose life was cut short, and a family forever changed. For more than 10 years, the name Aliza Sherman was a haunting reminder of justice delayed. Now, it's a name tied to perseverance, to a family's refusal to give up, and to investigators who finally found the missing pieces of the puzzle. Justice may not move quickly, but it moves. And when it does, it reminds us that truth has a way of resurfacing, no matter how many years have passed. If this story moved you, don't let Aliza's name fade away. Share this video so more people hear her story, and so the importance of solving cold cases never gets forgotten. If you'd like to see more true crime stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next case we cover. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the way cold cases are handled? Do you believe justice delayed can still be justice served? Let me know in the comments below.